Alright, I've had enough. Since you're all so smart, and you just won't stop with the wait for next episode to use that title, or get ready to change the title. Yeah, you think you're so right, huh? Let's take a look at episode 21 then real quick. Oh, what else is there left to say? Every week, my mind gets blown away with the quality that we get in spite of all the hardships being continuously faced by the JJK staff. This episode was awesome, so let's just dive right in. No time is wasted as we immediately follow up from where we last left off. Mahito uses his transfigured humans to create an arena, and the final round begins. Seemingly not having learned his lesson, however, Mahito undermines Todo by only focusing his speech on Itadori. Todo and Yuji look each other in the eye and immediately lock in. Mahito is stuck in place and Yuji charges forward with a kick, but Mahito's one step ahead. He severs his head and turns himself into a parasite. No, like literally the parasites from the hit show Parasite from 2004. He also turns his little gremlin head into Bantaspo. Didn't know Mahito was cultured like that. For the first time in the episode, we get this black and white sequence, one of a few that we'll be getting later on. It's basically just showing Mahito's technique being activated as the narrator goes on in the background. It's a pretty cool looking scene and I really like this visual style. Hint hint wink wink, nudge nudge. The polymorphic soul isomer, I'm just gonna call him Isomer for the rest of the video, is formed and pulls an armor titan as it charges at Todo. No, literally, it just sounds like the same footsteps that they use for the titans. Like with almost everything in Jujutsu Kaisen, give and take is a concept that you need to pay attention to because it affects everybody. Todo realizes this and quickly deduces the relative strength of the splits, 8-2. The parasite is the bigger troublemaker, a detail made a little bit more explicit in the manga, but shown indirectly in the anime instead. Todo prioritizes teleporting the stronger one away from Yuji, forcing the 20% Mahito to fight Yuji head on, leaving Todo to deal with the isomer. However, Todo miscalculated. Instead of the transfigured human being at a grade 3 or grade 2 level, its speed and attack were enough to send Todo flying through a building, far away from Yuji, as Mahito quickly reforms with his clone, bringing his body back to 100%. In the manga, Todo throws a rock to pull this Sasuke move, but the anime did a clothes hanger instead. Neat. The isomer is quickly defeated with one hit, and then it hits Todo. The isomer is only as strong as it is as a consequence of expending many souls at once. However, give and take, in exchange for that explosive strength, its durability was greatly lowered. Two more make their way towards Todo as he kisses the necklace. Another spoiler from the opening that we finally get to see in the anime proper. I talked about loving Todo's kindness in last week's video, and this character moment for him is another reason to, in my opinion, love the character. Despite these transfigured humans having already been long dead, Todo still apologizes for ending their lives. Despite being prime sorcerer material, he is still fully human. Yuji was fine against a 20% Mahito, but the fully realized version is too much for him to handle. Mahito's able to pile on the attacks and even sends Yuji flying into the anime barren wasteland, but Todo's already there to back his brother up. Running out of options and with Todo's technique being burdensome, Mahito expands his domain, an all or nothing gamble, just like the one he got inspiration from a few hours prior, a domain expansion of 0.2 seconds. Expanding the barrier itself and then activating the technique simultaneously, a two-step process had been combined into one sublimely fast maneuver. A feat only possible due to his experience with Black Flash. Mahito is able to land the sure hit on Todo, avoiding Yuji, and by proxy, avoiding his own death at the hands of Sukuna. The second black and white sequence that follows when the domain activates is great. I love the style, as I said. Fading into white with the sparks of black symbolizing their importance on the feet, and of course, the four eyes of the strongest sorcerer in history, calling back to the first time Mahito actually invaded Sukuna's innate domain. His trick had worked this time, however, and Sukuna is left impressed, even smiling at Mahito. Todo had tried to activate Simple Domain, but Mahito was one step ahead. The damage began inflicting itself in Todo's arm and traveled upwards. Todo quickly cuts his arm off, but Mahito's already on the move. Unable to use his curse technique, he opts for another Black Flash, this time with this image flashing alongside the sparks of black. Todo had managed to minimize the damage, but a Black Flash is still a Black Flash. And now with the curse technique returned, Mahito goes for part 2. But just then... So, how am I even going to talk about this scene? I actually saw this scene on Twitter before I watched the episode. I had woken up from a bomb-ass nap, and although I was smiling the entire time looking at it, I was like 98.25% sure that this had to be a fever dream. I love it. I really always liked the quick pace of the manga in terms of this technique. It felt like when Todo pulled this off, it happened instantly and seamlessly. The flow reading it from page to page was never lost, and the sequence as a whole was, well, complete. This is definitely a different spin on it, as it takes us out of the action immediately and it makes us go, honestly, just WTF for a few moments before we quickly realize that it's just Todo being, well, Todo. And honestly, after having sat on it for a while I'm writing the script, I rock with it quite heavy actually. Gege has said in the past that the memories Todo gets with Yuji have nothing to do with some kind of technique on Yuji's end. Instead, it's just that Todo's weird. Outside of that and the necklace, I don't think Gege has ever dove that deep into this aspect of his character, but the anime staff took that little tiny character trait and amped it to the max. This scene perfectly encapsulates the weirdness that Todo has, as well as honestly just his kindness and love for his brother. He shares a spot in his necklace alongside Takada. Speaking of which, seeing her beat up Mahito alongside Todo in his mind has got to be top tier visual gag. The idol music in the background, the recreation of the volume cover, the two fighting in sync, and of course, the handshake itself perfectly transitioning into an incredibly smooth black flash. Peak cinema. Mahito is sent flying and Yuji runs after him, thanking Todo for everything. Todo lays down on the ground, his hand completely singed off by Mahito's technique. He closes his eyes, and his arm goes limp. Having previously landed a black flash, however, the shape of Mahito's soul had been revealed to him. The most prodigious character in the series, once again, goes even further beyond. Casting idol transfiguration on himself, an amalgamation of transfigured humans erupts out of him, and just as quickly as they came out, so too does Mahito. This was equally instant in the manga, and I personally really like the uneasiness the scene oozes with this move. Yuji stopped in his tracks, observing the new and improved Mahito. Instant spirit body of distorted killing. Cool name, did it really need to have a light novel title length though? Sharp spikes protruding from his elbows, his face shielded by a plate of armor, cool ass tendrils flowing in the wind, and a tail just like Frieza. This is the true essence of Mahito's soul. Of all the characters in Jujutsu Kaisen, Mahito is one that has truly the most potential. He's only months old, yet has access to a domain, a busted technique, experience with Black Flash, and most importantly, the mindset of a true disaster. While the disaster curses themselves obsessed over becoming human, Mahito fully embraces his status as a curse, and this form is the culmination of all of that. All of that happened, and we're still only at halftime, so like the video and subscribe, thanks. The fight that follows is great. Yuji's able to close the gap by better hand-to-hand, but the sheer difference in stats is too much for him to handle. His attacks have no impact on Mahito as he sits there and lets Yuji hit him. Just like with Choso, normal attacks will have no effect. For Yuji to win this fight and not end up like he did against Choso, he will need to hit Mahito with a Black Flash infused with the maximum of his curse energy. Yuji's face gets grabbed for the second time this season. Seriously, Yuji, you cannot let them keep disrespecting you like this, and gets thrown into sewage. His legs shaking, Mahito doesn't give an inch and dashes towards him. He readies his blade. However, having sustained a Black Flash right after expanding his domain, Mahito was also nearing his limit. And just like against Choso, Yuji steals his body, punching at his leg to keep it still in preparation for the final Black Flash. No one can use Black Flash at will, yet Yuji makes it seem that way. Mahito makes a note of this and darts around, looking for an angle. I would too if Yuji was looking at me like this. He comes up with a sound plan and rushes in. He lures Yuji into punching him, but at the last moment changes his body back to normal, fully reinforcing that area with cursed energy. Yuji lands his punch on Mahito's shoulder, and just when he thinks he's won, a delayed second impact. Divergent Fist is a technique that Yuji developed as a bad habit. After his fight with Choso, however, he had learned to control this technique at will. And at this very moment in time, Yuji had outplayed Mahito. The attack aimed at Yuji doesn't connect, and one of the hardest lines in JJK is then uttered by Todo, back from near death. Todo proclaims that an arm is merely a declaration. The act of applause is an acclamation of the soul. Predicting the switch, Mahito swoops around, but Yuji's nowhere to be found. The Boogie Woogie curse technique is dead. One final bait and switch from Todo, just enough for Yuji to land the best Black Flash of the series. If you'd asked me before the anime to rank the Black Flashes, this one would have probably still been my number one, so to see it done this incredibly well in the anime was an incredible treat to watch, and I don't think I could ask for better. The music, the animation, the effects work, the beautiful color, and the shapes of the lightning itself just makes it all come together to form my personal favorite Black Flash, not only visually, but also narratively. The final Black Flash on Mahito, from Yuji. With no more transfigured humans left, Yuji looks down on Mahito. I am you. I know I say this a lot, but this is a moment that pretty much every manga reader has been waiting for. The climax of the conflict between Yuji and Mahito. After the deaths of thousands at his hands, the deaths of Junpei, Nanami, Nobara, all of the suffering that has been caused by him, finally, Yuji gets his get back. The I am you speech is an incredibly important aspect of Yuji's character. Not only is it cathartic to us viewers to see him giving it to Mahito, without delving too deep into manga spoilers, this mentality of being a cog that only exists to exercise curses is one that will follow Yuji. Here, we get the continuation of his answer to Todo's question from last episode. Yuji's role as a sorcerer isn't simply to save lives, it is to exercise as many curses as it takes. And even if his actions don't have any meaning now, they might 100 years later. Massive props to Junya Inoki for his performance in this scene. He absolutely nailed it. And I don't think I can see anyone else doing this scene. Also, props to the director for not throwing in the opening. The snow scene was done justice and then some. I mean, Yuji had this guy quivering. He even started crying. The rabbits making their escape, see what I did there? Alongside Mahito from the pack of wolves led by Yuji. Mahito pathetically throwing snowballs to slow him down, merely balls of dirt in the real world. This rat fuck even sticks a rock in one of them, but Yuji keeps walking forward. Mahito's voice actor also nails the performance. I'd always envisioned Mahito simply screeching like a banshee at this point, but his take on it was amazing. Having Mahito essentially cry like a little bitch was an incredibly cathartic experience, and seeing him twist his ankle trying to run away from the big bad Yuji was equally great. I also like this anime-only scene of Yuji punting him away. Unfortunately though, he punts him right at Fake Geto's feet.